So we have a series of brief presentations by people you probably all know. We're going to try to keep it short enough that you can also have time to say some words yourself. So I'm going to start by introducing David Hunt.
So for those of you who don't know me, I think I'm probably the elder statesman in the room tonight. Anyway, I spent a 27-year career with USAID before I received what one might call a revelation and moved to Save the Children, where I thought I might remain for 5 years, and 17, 18 years later I'm still Save the Children, and there are good reasons for that. In any case, just a few words about Karen. Well, first of all, I've known her since she was at Save the Children, and it was a sad day when Karen and her spouse Michael, those of you who don't know Michael, you should raise your hand. They were in many ways the heart and soul of the organization, and it was a huge loss at that time. I also know Karen well enough to know that, unlike Donald Trump, she actually isn't seeking to be the center of attention. All agree. And what she does in so many ways, she does in a quiet and very unassuming way. But let me say a few words about Karen and CORE. So I was fortunate enough to be a part of the board of CORE. I actually inherited this position when I joined Save the Children. And I had no idea what was going on, to tell you the truth. But I learned pretty quickly that there was a very good reason for having an organization such as CORE. And I also learned that it really desperately needed leadership. And I think we were so incredibly fortunate in many ways, even though we were sad to see Karen with Save the Children, that she was available and interested in taking on this leadership position with the CORE group. So, a few things to say about, some of the achievements that, in my mind anyway, are important. One, I think, just solidifying CORE, as a forum for sharing knowledge and learning across its members. There really wasn't any other entity that was set up for the purpose of doing that. Secondly, I think through the working groups, and all of us have been part of working groups, but these working groups actually work. And creating a mechanism for really systematically sharing that experience and best, or what I would call better practices and networking. Serving as a go-to source of information on community health, which also didn't exist before. And also on partnering on critical global initiatives that, again, I don't think would have been possible had there not been an entity such as CORE. And I'm thinking, for example, of polio eradication and pandemic influenza. What I have found particularly remarkable about Karen and her tenure is her steadfastness in advocating for the importance of what I would call community engagement, and especially for the importance of listening to and learning from the communities that we seek to serve. And some of us might think, well, gee, that's a nice thing to do, but beyond being a nice thing to do, it's what you need to do if you're going to succeed. And I think she's always believed very firmly in that. Second, systematically documenting and sharing our learning, to quote David Marsh, who many of you may know, and I'm pretty sure that there are a host of others who have cited this quote, but as David Marsh would say, if it wasn't documented, it didn't happen. And by the way, I think we're all aware of the fact that NGOs are notoriously bad at doing that documentation because we're so busy implementing, right? So I think really making that a priority for work and the members was so important. Working together to ensure that all of our members, regardless of their size and geographic focus, felt a part of the organization, but also could access up-to-date knowledge and learning that will help them, we hope, do more and better programming. It's particularly important for those smaller organizations. Save the Children happens not to be one of them, but there are many organizations that have a much more limited presence and engagement geographically and programmatically. So it was really important to feel and help them feel that they were a part of this. So others are going to repeat what I have to say here, I'm sure. But the steady, committed, and supportive leadership, sharing her passion for CORE and its mission at every opportunity. Did you ever have a conversation with Karen when she didn't talk about that? It hasn't always been easy, I would have to say. But then if it had been, she would have been bored. Maybe not completely bored, but some. And I guess I'd just like to finish by saying what I do know is this, that it is hard to imagine anyone more dedicated to the cause and the values of our NGO community than Karen. And for that, and for her leadership over these past 14 years, we are grateful. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you very much for this opportunity to celebrate Karen. I have written remarks, but they come from the heart, and my partner in crime is not here tonight, Elizabeth Fox. Due to a pressing issue, she had to return home, but she very much has contributed to these. Karen, USAID thanks you. Is this echoing? Can you hear me without the mic? No. Karen, I feel like I'm serenading you.
There you go, go ahead. Sing it the song.
That's, I think, for Tom. USAID thanks you for leading our largest and oldest partnership for public health. You rallied NGOs, civil society, governments, and the American people, as you always like to remind us, don't leave the American people out, around a noble mission to save lives in the communities of greatest need and develop resilient democratic societies with strong citizen participation. Is this off? It's on. Okay, sorry. From the original 10 founding members in 1998, you built a vibrant, growing core group community, now more than 100 members strong. You nurtured a robust community of practice that gives the world technical resources, innovative approaches, and trusted networks of NGOs with roots in many countries. Thanks to you, INGOs have a clear, unified voice about what's important for health and development. You have achieved all this in a landscape of shifting goals, new development actors and new partnerships, and a very crowded space of ideas, some more sexier than others. You shaped a culture of collaboration, set the tone, and mixed the ingredients that held it together. What are the ingredients of your glue? You could probably trademark that. Core Group's contribution to the Child Survival and Health Grants Program increased the impact and influence of USAID's investments in community health. There's no doubt about that. And where it matters the most, on the ground. The program has transformed how we work, how our partners work, and contributed to progress in many countries. It's a program that I'm very proud to have been associated with and to have worked with all of you, many of you who were associated with the program much before I came to USAID. This transformation continues. The Core Group leads the way in the current dialogue on civil society's role and contribution to the Every Woman, Every Child strategy and the Sustainable Development Agenda, and we're missing you in those conversations. But David is doing a great job, and so is Eric. Everyone at USAID who has worked with you, Katie Taylor, Elizabeth Fox, Richard Green, Ann Beniston, John Barrazo, Mary Ellen Stanton, Lily Cock, Elaine Cook, Susan Ewell, thank you for making this partnership with INGOs, civil society, citizens, and communities the success it is today. We thank you for your guidance in ushering us into the 21st century in face of ordinary and extraordinary demands. Your unwavering leadership, courage to embrace change, enthusiasm to explore new directions, and ability to keep the line of communication open between core group members and USAID has made all the difference. Finally, we applaud your commitment and capacity to find common ground, the loyalty and respect for you within the core group community, all the teary eyes in the audience, and beyond, including USAID, are your success and legacy. On a personal note, I have absolutely loved working with you for more than a decade. Words do not do justice in conveying the joy I have had with you, facing new challenges, debunking numerous INGO myths and stereotypes with real data, and learning, dreaming, and believing. We couldn't believe it when the Lancet reviewers told us we should do case studies of INGOs. Why are we bothering with all the data? That was just a moment. Leadership can be a lonely place, particularly during times of change. I have found in you a strong comrade with whom to face change and opportunity. You understood the core of what we had to preserve as we charted new territory with sincerity and good cheer. I appreciate your quiet but firm voice of wisdom at critical moments, and I will really miss that. The excitement and twinkle in your eyes, I've seen it multiple times, at the thought of exploring new directions and ideas. We had this grand plan to do this supplement to usher us into the SDGs with all of the NGO expertise, but little did we know we needed a different process. David Oot was a part of that conversation too. Your commitment to making our three-legged work stool stand on its own, and your ability to nurture and grow our partnership. You have been my guide, as you have been to so many others, to new directions and tools, examples of compelling evidence or the human stories, and ways to overcome new challenges. You have always been there for us and with us. We have done our best when we have transcended the traditional boundaries of donor and partner and worked in solidarity across the three pillars of the Child Survival and Health Grants Program. Together, we have preserved what matters, charted new territory, and contributed to progress, and we should be proud of that. I'm reading a book on Robert Gates right now. It's called Passion for Leadership. So who would have thought Robert Gates thinks leadership has more to do with the heart than the head? But anyway, this is from that book. Harry Truman said, "Every great achievement is the story of a flaming heart." And I'm very tickled to say this. Karen, while you do not always show it, those of us who have worked closely with you recognize your flaming heart for social justice and a right to all for health. Robust participation of citizens and communities in health and development. And the recognition and understanding of the value and role of INGOs as development partners, capable of helping countries to deliver on the promise of Alma Ata. You've reminded us of that so many times. A decade ago or so, when I delivered my first presentation as the Nervous New team leader of the Child Survival and Health Grants Program, in a very crowded room, hot room, your nod and supportive approval were like a hand reaching out to me. This evening, I reach out to you with an overwhelming sense of pride and deep respect and admiration for the flaming heart that has made our partnership so powerful and productive. You will always be our Honorable Karen LeBan, the Grand Dame of Community Health.
I don't think I know everyone. My name is Leo Ryan. I'm with ICF International, but for probably about 15 years I was leading a technical support project supporting child survival and health grantees, and as part of that project we collaborated with the core group and I worked very closely with Karen. So I wanted to share a few thoughts. First of all, I want to say that the video that you guys made, I don't think any of us can say anything that's not in that video. That was excellent. So I think we should congratulate this I also want to thank the organizers for the timing of this meeting. Right after the snowstorm. You know, it's really perfect timing because I'm really happy to see lots of you who I haven't seen in a long time, for sure, but also because you're not members of my direct family. So it's really good to have a reason to go out and to stay out for a little bit longer than the regular working day. So I want to take a little bit of a different tack than the other presenters. I want to recognize Karen, but I was thinking about what I would say about Karen, and I think there are 4 things I want to focus on. 4 things I want to say, and these are things that I think are like special attributes that Karen has that I really admire, and I think we see them all in the work she's done from CORE. But I think, you know, these are things that I think Karen's gonna, I know you're gonna carry these with you whatever you do, and I've really learned a lot, you know, from these things. So, you know, one is that Karen, in everything she does, at the end of the day, no matter what we're talking about, no matter what we're doing, her focus is on the end user, the beneficiaries, you know, the people who, if we're developing a new tool, if we're planning a workshop, if we're developing some, you know, whatever it is, I think Karen's the one that's always thinking about, like, you know, who's this going to affect at the end of the day? You know, how's this going to affect vulnerable populations? And we need to be thinking about that. And she constantly reminds us of that when we get into big discussions about how we should take it in this direction, or, you know, there are lots of different global policies that we need to adhere to and things like that. And Karen always brings it back to how's this going to affect the household. And I think that's really important to remember. I think people have mentioned it in different ways, but I think Karen, in addition to leading a network like CORE, she was still able to take a role in thought leadership. So I looked at all the comments that people were making, even on the scroll that was going on before the video, and, you know, from the CIMCI framework to the CHW toolkit, to a paper that Nazo and Karen and I have been working on for some time about the you know, history of the Child Survival and Health Grants Program, all those things. I'm sorry, I'm moving on this. And so all of those things, I think Karen still sort of has kept the technical focus while leading this network and exhibiting thought leadership. And I think that's something I know for me and for others, it's a struggle. The more responsibility you take on and the more tasks that you have to start to assume to stay technically focused, to continue to exhibit thought leadership, and somehow or another you manage to do that, Karen, and I think that's a real strength that you have, and I've learned a lot for that. Karen, I think, has the ability to take very complex concepts and frame them in very simple terms. And I think that's a part skill and part art form, and I think that's a skill that, you know, all of us can learn from, and that has really benefited the community. I think, you know, I've been in meetings with Karen where we've been trying to plan a new paper, or we've been trying to develop a new framework or tool, and Karen's always the one who says things like, well, who's the target audience for this? Who are we trying to reach? Or what are the objectives we're trying to accomplish? And usually, like, the rest of us look at her and say, can't we talk about that later? Let's just develop the thing now and we'll figure that out later. But I really appreciate that she brings us back, she grounds us, and she does that, and I think several people have said that, she does that without bringing ego to the table. So she does it in a very gentle way, very calm way. You know, she doesn't kind of put her fist down on the table and demand that we do it this way, or, you know, cite all the literature for why we need to do it this way because it's what all the key thinkers think. and somehow she's able to get her point across and she's able to sway the group. So those of you who I know well know that I often get asked to kind of facilitate meetings on difficult topics where people are trying to figure things out that there's really no answer to, and everyone has a different idea of how to do it. And in that role, I'm really going to miss Karen, because Karen, when she's been in those meetings, she's been one of my secret weapons. How the magician never reveals their tricks. I mean, this is one of my secrets, that when I'm in a meeting that I'm leading and I know Karen's in the meeting, I feel completely comfortable putting a question out there, letting everybody say whatever they want to say, no matter how crazy it is or how off base or whatever it is. And I just kind of keep Karen in the corner of my eye, and after a while I just say, Karen, do you have any thoughts on that? And then usually she'll say, well, yeah, actually I've been listening and I heard this person say this and this person, and I think we should maybe proceed like this. And it always is very practical, very logical, makes complete sense. So my last point is that I think probably the thing that Karen gets less credit for, but I heard it some in the video, is that she connects people with meaningful experience. And whether that's through core group meetings, I remember, core group meetings used to be just big meetings, everybody came, there was a series of presentations, we all went home, we had breaks, we talked, and Karen introduced speed dating, techniques and all kinds of different, getting the public sector involved to present, bringing in bear, all those groups. I don't know why this is Sweden, but anyway, we'll proceed. So things like that, I think, mentoring staff, I look at people like Shannon and Pinky and Alyssa, the people who have come through the core organization and gone on to do other things. I think core has been an amazing sort of place for people to get experience. I was at a meeting last week where we were talking with other partners who wanted to, who were trying to do new work with USAID, talking with USAID. One of the issues that came up was that it's really hard to respond to an RFP or an RFA and to propose someone who is new to the field, who doesn't have a lot of experience, because the requirements are so technical. You need somebody with 10 years experience and 20 years experience who's done this and done that. And I think Core Group has been a great place for people to learn, people to get exposed to all the experience in the network, and to be able to do that. I think the Jharkhand experience is another example of that, organizing that trip. So anyway, Karen, thanks for everything that you've contributed. I think the last thing I wanted to say, which I was wondering if I would say this, and I wasn't sure, but then Karen told me a story right when I got here, and I said, I have to say it. So my last point is, I think in all of this, we're definitely honoring Karen, we're wishing her well, and I think change is good. I think that's the other thing that Karen, through her leadership, has showed us, is that change is good. And even though I wasn't sure about that, when Karen told me tonight that next week she's going to be taking a yoga class in Costa Rica, change is definitely good. So thank you very much, Karen. I'll pass it to Karen.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Eric Sario. We've heard a lot of things, so I'm going to try to be quick. I think many of you have worked with Karen longer and deeper than I have, so I outsourced some of my work. I'm very honored to have to say a few words, but I outsourced some of my work to somebody who's famous for having been on the chair of the core board and infamous for an infamous evaluation. So you'll have to guess who it is. And the dude in question says, the most important decision the core group ever made was to hire Karen LeBan. It is really that simple. We were an organization seeking a leader who was willing to handle the day-to-day task of shepherding a bunch of strong-willed, impatient, and overachieving idealists. Karen was a non-anxious presence in the midst of an organization seeking its identity. She provided exactly what we needed: steady, quietly, visionary. That's Karen. We can never say thanks enough to Karen for making it the relevant, meaningful, trustworthy, and professional organization it became under her leadership. We have been so fortunate. So I'll let you guess who said that. Madame knows the words. Now, I know that Karen, David said it doesn't like to be the center of attention, and we've said a lot of nice things about Karen tonight, so I think it's time to take her down a peg. I'm sorry. So, I have to reveal some facts, and it's going to be painful, but I think truth is important. And there's a diversity of culture in co-group. So, this is the outing moment. So, some people will be happy, some people will be not happy. Jim will be happy for this one. Karen is a socialist. That's done right. That's done right, un-American. All right, but it gets worse, people. It gets seriously worse. Karen, in spite of her circularist, tendencies, which I spotted as a French guy, laicity and all, Karen is, hold your breath, faith-based. She is. Karen believes in stuff like cooperation is better than competition. Where is the evidence? She believes in trust and altruism. She believes at this at a very, very deep level. She has a deep faith in trust and altruism. She believes in the diversity of experience and the creativity, and she believes that creative and wealth creation comes from the commons. People have talked about the tragedy of the commons. Karen believes in the diversity and creative imagination of the commons. That's a faith-based position. And finally, and here's another one, as many faith-based positions, sometimes they work out, sometimes the evidence has to follow. So, prepare your RCTs, Jim. So, Karen believes, and that's, sometimes it's on the edge of dangerous, these faith-based attitudes. She believes in the intelligence of other people. No, she really believes that. You get a group of people, for me it was in 2000 and whatever, and I came with some whatever ideas, and it's like, sure, let's see what we can do with that. And I think many of us in this room have seen that in working groups and others. So Karen believes in the intelligence of other people, and that is the greatest intelligence. So, thanks a lot, Karen.
First, thank the organizers of the event for scrutinizing an introvert for 2.5 hours. It's a very comfortable thing, and I'm glad to participate in it.
I think it's only been an hour.
Well, that's just the talking part. Karen's guided us for 14 years. I'm speaking on behalf of the staff, by the way, and I'm inadequate to the job because many of the staff I've never met. Karen's been at it 14 years. I've been here less than a year, and it's a real honor for me to do this. But I thought about this. It was a heavy weight. I thought I'd wing it. And then I fell asleep at Mars. And in that sleep, I had a dream. And that dream was a version of Charles Dickens' Christmas story. And in that story, the angels, or the ghosts, past, present, and future, came to Karen. And I was like a disembodied third party floating there. And so we went back in time. I promise this won't be long. The past is the most interesting part. But this ghost was laden with chains and locks and iron balls. But also carried some golden scepters and a little gold crown. And I thought, well, that's interesting. That's a little bit different. And when we look more closely, and the ghost explained, one of the chains was, in working with members of the organization, my way or the highway. Members. And that was the ball and the chain. we came to this organization with my way or the highway, my brand or no brand. And what we got was shared metrics. Seriously, and methods for measurement. Seriously, I mean, when you think about our M&E group, we have helped reform, I would say reform and improve, survey research, survey questions, indicators. We have helped reform measurement, survey, sampling. Seriously, all of this we have done, and it's been under Karen's leadership. This happened. Under the working groups, we've developed guides, manuals, and materials, and it was all through volunteer collaboration across these same organizations. And it was because the core group was a neutral space, and because we felt safe there. And Karen was a part of that, and Karen helped lead that. And this is not to be forgotten. Well, another ball and chain was there was an absence of evidence on the effectiveness of community health programming. What the hell? And a lack of belief in its effectiveness. I mean, seriously, honestly, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, nobody believed this stuff. I mean, we were talking to audiences who said, no, you know, I mean, and still there's some naysayers out there, but it's really changed. And maybe this seems trite, but in the last few years, this has really changed. And so instead of community health workers and community volunteers looking like a fool's mission, ministries of health are on board, and they're rushing to try to catch up with us. And they are acknowledging task transfer, and they're acknowledging they don't have the resources, and they're acknowledging the resources of communities. And this was all part of core group, and this was all part of Karen's vision. So, Karen led us. It's a ball and chain. Karen was a participant in this. I mean, this is a Christmas story. I mean, what can you change about yourself? We're talking about tight financial management. She can make the buffalo on the nickel scream. She's tough. But as PBOs, it was always like that for us with the Child Survival and Health Grant Program. It was a wonderful program. It gave us enormous support. And Henry Perry stood up every year and said, I don't get it. I don't get it. Why don't we get more money? We're doing such a great job, and we're making so much progress. And all I can say is, please go back, any of you, and look at the Child Survival Annual Reports to Congress during that time. They're fabulous reports. And if anyone coasted on anybody's tails, it was the PVOs and the Child Survival Health Program during those years that did, because we did an enormous amount of good. And Karen was all a part of that. And then finally, what I want to say in the past, what this ghost told us, was that, Karen, you're dealing with outsized personalities in one small, self-righteous community. And what we saw with the scepter in this person's hand, the scepter represented, we had great annual meetings. We worked hard and we partied hardy. And it's just taking it back to the memories of Lake Junaluska, enforced walking around the lake with sneakers to talk to and compadres, going to the restaurant, butts on the creek to dance to a local mountain band, and dancing till your shirt tail came out. So we're still community, and thank you very much. So then we, of course, went to the present, and I'll speed it up now. Karen leaves us in good shape, and it's in an ever-shifting shape, shape-shifting world. And so that's just the way it is. There are enormous challenges our staff and board face, and we're stronger because Karen was here before. I bought a Powerball lottery ticket for $1.5 billion. I actually bought 5 numbers, and I dedicated it to Karen and Courtney. But as you know, things didn't work out. But the good news is that Karen didn't leave us and hope for the lucky. We just have to get by on our hard work and tenacity and stick with it, and that's what we're going to do. Her values of quiet determination, belief in our shared mission, conservative management of resources, which I'll come back to because I worked under her and it was very painful. Hard work, she's exceptionally hard work, and her exceptional insights into our little universe are remarkable. So we thank you for that, Karen. The ghost of Karen's future now asks, not about Corbin, but about Karen. What will you do now, Karen? Karen's response, I don't know yet, but when I do, don't call me, I'll call you.
So now, because this is a core group event and we are very participatory, we are going to have a song fest, and we expect everybody to join in. This song was written by Janine Schooley, who unfortunately can't be here to lead us in it, but Tom Davis and Mary DeCosta are going to do that.
I always felt like corporate meetings were so fun. It's like the one thing we're missing was singing, so we're finally going to do that. After you hear the song, the tune of it, I think Janine picked Marry Me because she figured we're the people that use the most drugs in the 70s. And it's not necessarily true. There are other people who probably know that more. So I'm going to give you a little bit of the tune, and then we're going to be singing this a cappella.
And let me just say, we were not chosen for talk and sing. I cannot. If you can't sing, they always say, if you can't sing good, sing loud.
So we're going to literally sing you our praises now.
And you guys are all going to
Picture ourselves in a meeting without you, with working group chairs and PowerPoint slides. We can't imagine our lives here without you, the woman named Karen LeBan. Strategic planning
So, we're almost done. Because we didn't want to take up too much more time, but I knew coming last was going to be an impossible task, and now it certainly is. So, I'm here to represent on behalf of the core board and members our infinite thanks to Karen for her many accomplishments. And I'm not going to go through a whole lot of things because you've all heard them and you all know them. But I think that the most important things are the grace and insight through all of the challenges that we've been through, and how she has often absorbed the stress herself so that staff and members and board didn't have to do that. So I think that's one point I would very much like to thank her for. We've already heard about her being a thought leader. It's a concept she embodies. She is always looking ahead for new directions and approaches to anticipate and solve problems. She engaged all of us in that process, and she supported us and has helped large and small organizations. Small organizations absolutely benefit, but I would argue that the big ones do too. Here are my music notes. I think that as an executive director, I'm skipping through most of this because I know we want to have some time for other people, but I just want to say that you practiced the principles of collaboration that you promoted. You were transparent and an inspiring leader, always sensitive to the needs of communities, donors, and members. You utilized tenacity with optimism, which is not an easy thing to do in the face of adversity, whether this was potential organizational conflict or major funding issues. These are never easy, but she did it, and she did it well. I have to tell you one story because you'll now really appreciate it after this whole love fest we've been having. So we all know that Karen is selflessly devoted to this organization and to all of us. In January, she wrote me and said, you know, I've been thinking, I think this event shouldn't really be about me. I think that we should use it as an opportunity to promote core group. So we need to have working group chairs, present what they're doing, to do some things to get more young people involved and get new members. Now this, as I said, was in January, and Karen's last day was December 31st. So I ignored it. So Karen, you sometimes just have to step back and let people thank you for all of the things that you have done. We all love you dearly. We wish you all the best. And we know our future paths are going to stay together no matter what. One small presentation, and then I'm going to let Karen wants to speak, so I said, well, wait and see what you feel like at the end of this. But we have a present for you from the board, and and it has a stand. It has a stand, and it was supposed to have a large orchid plant in it. But as we all know, the storm did a lot of damage to all of our plans, and we just got the whatever. I was told I can't call it an urn, but it's a pot, okay, official. So this is the orchid. But the board wants you to have something to remember us by, and fish are a good one for the future. So.
Oh, well, thank you. I have three things I just want to say. One is gratitude. And I just want you all to know how special each and every one of you are. And we are so fortunate that we are a group of like-minded, committed people who wake up every day with ideas about saving the world and being able to work with each other. I mean, it is really special. And I think of you all as a family. That's what gets me up in the morning and got me going. And at times it's a dysfunctional family. But we all love families, so it's been just a wonderful experience. 2 is collaboration. I mean, you all the members, founded CORE because you wanted to collaborate. And collaboration is not necessarily a concept well liked and well funded and well supported, and yet collaboration is what has made the value of community health respected, and I think it's worldwide, and it's us collaborating that did it. No organization alone could have ever done that. It took all of us to do that. It's really another very special thing. And I think collaboration over the years, it ebbs and flows. Sometimes it's funded, sometimes it's under attack. But the trust that has been built up amongst us all and the increasing numbers of people who want to collaborate is something very special and valued, and it's something we need to protect. That space has got to exist for this world to be what we would like it to be. So I hope so much that we can keep this kind of spirit going. And then the third statement is change. Change is good. I mean, change is constant. We've got to embrace change because change is normal. And there's times you've got to step out and let other people lead the next charge who's got the energy. And personally, I found a poem. I love time to read poetry. I talk about shame. I just want to say this poem. I'm sorry to make you stand longer.
No, absolutely not.
This is a poem written in 1930s by a Greek Egyptian, and it's called Ithaca. And Ithaca is the story of Ulysses trying to get home to Ithaca. That's talked about during the Odyssey. And I just thought, God, this really represents, for me, CORE. I just need a little light here to read this. So, as as you set out for Ithaca, like Ulysses, hope your road is a long one, full of adventure, full of discovery. Lastrygonian, Cyclops, angry Poseidon, don't be afraid of them. Challenges are good and part of the adventure. Hope your road is a long one. May there be many summer mornings when, with what pleasure, what joy, you enter harbors you're seeing for the first time. May you stop at trading stations to buy fine things. And may you visit many cities to learn and go on learning from their scholars. Keep Ithaca always in your mind. Arriving there is what you are destined for. But don't hurry the journey at all. Better if it lasts for years, so you're old by the time you reach the island, wealthy with all you've learned on the way. Ithaca gave you the marvelous journey. Without her, you would not ever have set out. And if you find her poor when you arrive, Ithaca won't have fooled you. Wise you will have become, full of experience. You'll have understood by then what the journey to Ithaca really was about.
Open comments, and we can still do some of that, but I just would like to point out to everybody who might not get an opportunity to speak that there is a book, which I think people started passing around.
Over here.
But we really would hope that everybody gets a chance to sign that before the evening is over. So, anyone else would like to say a quick few words? Yeah.
Going back a number of years now, when Karen was working for Save the Children in Westport, in Connecticut. transport, and she was the backstop for the child survival programs for Save the Children. And I was a brand new, wet behind the ears technical advisor to the PVO Child Survival and Health Grants Program at USAID. And what I came armed with was a fair number of years of experience in an MPH from Hopkins, which for those of you who have it, you know that changes your brain. And I was looking at the whole program and analyzing things, and I presented it to a meeting where Dory Storms was with my bosses about where we were working and where we were not working based on mortality and based on need. There were some countries we couldn't work in. We couldn't work in Iraq, we couldn't work in a number of Iran, but I did an analysis, and there were countries where we could work that had a great need, but we were not working. And one of those was Guinea. And I gave that information to my bosses, and they made the decision in the next RFA to give some sort of incentive to PVOs to go work in countries where we could work that had a great need, but we were not working. And Karen got on the phone and called me, and she said, we're working in Mali, but the same ethnic group is across the border in Guinea, and we're thinking about maybe going over there. And I shared that with my bosses, and they, with a lot of, I don't know what the right word is, whether it's affirmative action or with a lot of leniency for an area where nobody had worked, where no one had ventured, like Star Trek, where no one had ventured, worked with Save the Children. They couldn't give them a full grant, but they gave the planning, something called a planning grant, which probably nobody has ever heard of. And they said, this isn't good enough for us to give you a grant, but this is good enough for us to give you a couple of years to go in there and find out what's going on and come back in with a grant. And they did. And to my knowledge, Save the Children is still working in that really underserved area of Guinea. And many, many, many lives have been saved because of that collaboration. I was just in Guinea in July. So, and right now, Save the Children is sort of known as working very effectively in maternal and newborn and child health in our area. So I'm just saying that that was sort of this back and forth, this technical collaboration we were able to do. And anytime that we're able to find opportunities like that, I think there have been a tremendous number of communities and families and mothers and children that have benefited as a result.
I think we should all talk to Karen individually. She needs lots more hugs. Thank you all.